Hi everybody, this is Super Testnet, and today I'm going to make a little video about my latest project, which is Spacechain Launcher. Woohoo! Permissionless Bitcoin sidechains are here, and we don't even need a soft fork. So I made this little tool to help people launch their own Bitcoin sidechains. And if you want to learn more about how Spacechains work, which is the mechanism I'm using here, Ruben Thompson, who invented them, made a couple of great things. Well, he's made a bunch of great things, but he made a video about them, and then Bitcoin Magazine made a little article about them. So I recommend you check out those to learn more in detail about how this stuff works. But sometimes the best way to learn how to do it is to do it. So let's just do it, and I'll explain what we're doing along the way. So first, we've got to give our sidechain, our space chain, a name. I'm going to call mine Super Space Chain. And then we need to give ours a Genesis message. So this is actually optional, but like some people like to put like a little political explanation of what it's for, like how big Satoshi put in about the bailouts and the banks and stuff into the Genesis message of Bitcoin. So I'm going to do one here. I love drive chains. Drive chain, by the way, has nothing to do with space chains. I just also like those. That's why I kind of sometimes do work in the sidechain field. Okay, so I'm going to submit that in a minute, but I've got a little message down here that says read before clicking, and that's going to explain a little bit about how sidechains work, or space chains, rather. So space chains are a sidechain of Bitcoin, meaning that it's a separate blockchain, not Bitcoin. Separate blockchain, okay? So that's what we're making here. We're making a blockchain that isn't Bitcoin. And the reason why I call it a sidechain is because it has a link. It has a link to Bitcoin. And yeah, I can skip the rest of that, but I'm just going to hit submit, and we'll get more into it in a bit. Do we really want to use this data? Super Space Chain, I love drive chains. Sure. That's a representation of our first block in our blockchain. And it's not yet connected to Bitcoin in any way. It's just a blockchain, not a sidechain yet. But how we turn it into a sidechain is by anchoring it into Bitcoin. What does anchoring mean, I hear you ask? Well, first of all, I'm going to do this on the testnet. Notice the TB here, it's testnet Bitcoin, not the real Bitcoin network, because this involves burning Bitcoins, and who wants to do that with real money? But yeah, you can play around with it on testnet for sure. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send 846 sets into this address that it told me to do. And while that's firing off, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. So what we're doing is we've got our blockchain started. Here's its first block. And right now it has no connection to Bitcoin. But it's going to, because what we're going to do with this Bitcoin address right here is as soon as that money arrives from that faucet, I'm going to broadcast a transaction that takes the hash of this first block of my sidechain and embeds that hash into Bitcoin, which is cool because now there's a link. Now there's a link between the two chains. In fact, as we build up our space chain, as we make more and more blocks, we're going to do the same thing. Every time we make a space chain block, we're going to anchor it into Bitcoin so that by putting its hash into Bitcoin. Oh, look there. I can even show you the hash now because this just got confirmed. Mempool, or not confirmed, but it got broadcasted. So mempool.space/testnet is where we're going to go. And I'm going to paste in this transaction ID. Here we go. Check this out. Little transaction ID right here. If we look at its details, this right here is the hash of our space chain block. And so as we build up our space chain, as we add more blocks, these hashes inside of Bitcoin's blockchain are just going to keep growing. And so I'm going to click OK. I'm going to show you how that works. First of all, let's look at our first block here. There's its hash, 54, whatever. There it is in Bitcoin. Where it's linked to Bitcoin now. This is the transaction in which we anchored it to Bitcoin. So that's this transaction right here, 3F33, 3F33, right there. It's telling us that this isn't confirmed yet, so this is subject to change. If this transaction never gets mined, then there'll never be a link between the two. But we'll just wait for that to happen because Bitcoin's censorship resistant that way. But now this extra block here, this is not included in Bitcoin anywhere. Like other than its hash right here, the rest of this stuff is not included in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin doesn't know anything about this transaction 1. It doesn't know how many bytes this sidechain is. Bitcoin doesn't know how many, any of this stuff. But yeah, the hash of it is in Bitcoin. And that's cool because we can actually make more of these things. If I register as a miner, and then I can add more things like BIP 300 is the best. This doesn't use BIP 300, by the way. That's sidechains again. BIP 300 is the best. If I click mine new block, I'm going to get an error because this is going to tell me you can only do one block at a time. That is a rule of Spacechains. You can only have one sidechain block per Bitcoin block, and you can read those links I gave earlier to learn why that is. But yeah, as soon as this confirms, we can make a second block, and then for each Bitcoin block, there can be an additional sidechain block that's anchored into it, which is kind of cool. So we'll just wait for that to happen, and I will come back when it's done. But the point is that you can actually figure out the order of blocks on the Spacechain by just following a trail of transactions. This Bitcoin address anchored the first block of the Spacechain into Bitcoin, sent the money into the second address, then we're going to spend out of that one into the next one, anchoring the second block, and then into the next one, anchoring the third block, and so forth. And just by following that trail of transactions, you can figure out the order of blocks on the sidechain, because their hashes are going to all be like that. And then as you're doing that, you can just assemble them independently on the sidechain. Importantly, like I said, Bitcoin doesn't know about the contents of these blocks. This blockchain can have entirely different rules to Bitcoin. You could do an Ethereum sidechain it follows the rules of Ethereum. You could do a Monero sidechain that follows the rules of Monero, because Bitcoin doesn't know anything about any of this stuff. Cool. So yeah, I'm going to come back as soon as this thing is done confirming, and then I will show you. We're going to make the second block. Okay, so the thing's done now. We can see here that the transaction is mined and is included in a block, so that's good. And if we go back, we got some new buttons. We have got buy and sell space coins, and we've got manage your wallet. But let's just go check back into the mining center where we can so I can show you what it's like to make a new transaction. So I'm going to type in some text about this is another love letter to drive chain. Why not? And mine a new block. And when I do that, we get a little Bitcoin address down here that's going to ask us to, pay more money, burn more Bitcoins to do this. So, although this actually isn't burning the Bitcoins because they're just going to miners. I think it's 846 sats. Yes. So this is. But we will show you. We'll show you burning Bitcoins when we come to that. That has to do with the wallet. Chimney. Gotcha. Okay, so basically, as we keep building up blocks of the sidechain and adding their hash into Bitcoin, we can come to consensus as people who are running sidechain software on the order of blocks and therefore the order of transactions in the sidechain. And this method of coming to consensus is cool because it doesn't involve any meaningful additions to Bitcoin's blockchain other than just a single hash of some state, which is cool. So now we can have completely different rule sets and completely new and novel use cases for blockchains without needing to create like altcoin tokens and stuff. Cool. So now let me just go look at this, explore this transaction, and looky here. This one has a hash of block number 2 of our sidechain. Right there starts with 6D9B. And if we go take a look, view our space chain, look at that. Sorry, I gave you the wrong thing. The hash is right here, 65FAB. That's how it starts. And right here, 65FAB is the hash of block 2. So, yeah, we can just follow a train of hashes on Bitcoin's blockchain to figure out the order of transactions on here. Once more, this block now is not in consensus yet because it hasn't been confirmed. It's still waiting for a confirmation on Bitcoin. But this allows us to do a whole bunch of cool stuff. One thing I want to note is that transactions on this particular sidechain is just any piece of text is a transaction. And so now let's get into the wallet where I can show you how that works. So one of the things about the wallet, I'm going to click it and we're going to get a warning message because it's going to tell us, warning, this section is super wonky and breaks all the time. Basically, I wrote it and I'm not very good at this stuff. Please ask for help in the Spacechains Telegram channel to help us debug it. Okay, so this is a confusing wallet because it's written by me, and I'm doing a bunch of debugging while I'm doing this stuff. Basically, it's synced the UTXO set, which there are no UTXOs in this space chain yet, and it is not current. If it was syncing, if it was in the process of syncing the UTXO set, which takes forever, this line would say what block it's working on, block 1 or block 2 or whatever. It's done with both of them because there's no UTXOs in either one. They just have text right now. Well, I guess transactions are just text too, but we'll see that in a minute. So right now we've got a balance of 0. If I click receive, it is going to try and figure out my latest unused address, which takes a million years for it to do. It is actually querying Blockchair, which is, they've got this API for doing op returns, and if I just inspect here, I'm getting some errors, 504 errors. These are not my fault. This is Blockchair's fault. Blockchair's web API has problems, and it'll just keep the web software will automatically keep retrying to get information from their Block Explorer. Why am I even talking about this? This is ridiculous. When someday this thing will finish and we can get back to that. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you some other stuff. I'm going to show you another wonky section that doesn't fully work yet, which is the space where you can buy and sell space coins. Cool. So what are we doing in here? Well, in theory, first of all, this button doesn't work yet. This is not actually a full marketplace for buying and selling space coins. But in theory, we should be able to peg into and peg out of the space chain by depositing bitcoins and actually burning them, which is the controversial part of space chains, is that you get coins onto them by destroying them. But let's see how that works. So we've got someone called the Void here who is willing to give us some space chains in return, or space coins in return for bitcoins. He's not a real person. This is just if we do like 546 here, or 1,000 or 700 or whatever amount we want of space coins, if that's how many we want, all we're doing is we're burning that many sats. And in order to do that, we need a space chain address, which is the thing that is not currently working. But yeah, let me see if it's ready now. Yay, we finally got it. The Blockchair's API stopped acting up. Okay, so we've got an unused address here, and let's copy it and go to the Void, view this offer. Let's do 700, paste the thing, and now it's asking us to send 1,000 sats to this address, and so let's do that, sending in 1,000 sats. Okay, so whenever that happens, we're going to just burn them. We're going to burn 700 of them, and then the other 300 go as a fee. What do I mean by burning them? Destroying bitcoins can be done by putting them in something called an op return, and that's what we're going to do. The space chain will then detect that we've burned these bitcoins. That's what the querying of the Blockchair API is doing. And if it succeeds, if Blockchair's API doesn't screw up and give me a bunch of 504 errors, then we will actually see that we now have 700 space sats that are the ghosts of old destroyed bitcoins. And then we can transfer them around on the space chain. We can send them back and forth to each other, to other people, or do whatever we want with them. And it'll just be cool. Like that's how it works. Great. Your space coins will be available in the space chain address you designated as soon as this transaction is confirmed. So whenever this transaction confirms, we will have space coins on the sidechain. All right. So one of the neat things about this is that, first of all, you've seen a lot of Bitcoin transactions. I mean, I've done 2 of them in this video. I've done one to create the first block. I did a second which is this one. I did a second Bitcoin transaction to create the second block, and then I'm doing a Bitcoin transaction in order to actually get space coins onto the space chain, or in order to issue tokens. And you might be thinking, like, why is this using Bitcoin transactions all the time? This is supposed to be a sidechain, and sidechains aren't supposed to do that. Well, yeah, that's right. Creating the sidechain costs some Bitcoin. Incrementing the number of blocks in it, adding new blocks, costs a little bit of Bitcoin, and putting tokens onto the space chain costs money, costs real Bitcoin to do that. Then after that, everything else happens off chain, right? So you can have 1 million transactions on this space chain, and Bitcoin will never know they existed, and then that's like a possible scaling improvement. Here's a downside. I'm burning some Bitcoins, right? So if we look at here, this op return, this is an unusual address to send Bitcoins to, KWLP /equal, that's not a normal Bitcoin address. And I sent 700 sats to it, right? So those are just gone forever. They're not spendable anymore because you can't, there's no private key to KWLP whatever. That's not a real Bitcoin address. But by burning them in this way, you can actually detect that on the sidechain that someone, because I specify in here the name or the ID of the sidechain is in this little script hex there, and the address that I want them to go into is also in there as well. And so the sidechain picks up on this weird transaction that destroyed 700 sats, and it's going to give me, as soon as that confirms, it'll show up. 700 sats will be available for me to spend on the sidechain. There's 700 non-sats anymore, ghosts of sats. So that's burning Bitcoins is why space chains are kind of controversial and why I don't recommend doing them on doing this when I'm doing on mainnet. But what's cool is that, and one of the reasons why it's controversial is because you can never get them back. There's no way to undo that and get those 700 Bitcoins back. They're just gone, or 700 sats. I mean, they're just gone forever. Thankfully, this is testnet where stuff like this is fine to do. Money has no meaning here. But so if I go manage my wallet, it's going to say 0 because the transaction hasn't confirmed yet. But as soon as it confirms and then goes through the whole rigmarole of trying to query the Blockchain API, that'll eventually say that I have 700 space coins. And we'll come back and I will show you that when that's ready. Okay, well, that transaction confirmed. You can see right here it did. And now, check it out, 700 space coins on my sidechain. We have a mechanism for creating a space chain, a mechanism for anchoring it into Bitcoin so that it becomes a sidechain, and now we have a method for getting coins, for issuing coins onto this space chain. Now, we can also send it to other people, so I'm just going to do that real quick. I'm going to send some of this to me myself. I'm going to send 200 sats, or 200 space coins, and then I'm going to get 50 sats out. If I do this, it's going to give me an error because nobody's mining. So let me do that, and it'll be like, you can't do this because nobody's mining. Maybe it should. I think it should have done that by now. Oh no, it's not ready. You just view in here. There is the transaction that it's creating in my console right there, and now it is checking whether it's going to work. So it signed and validated the transaction, as you can see in the console there, but now it's warning me, you cannot broadcast this transaction right now because there are no miners and therefore no one will pick it up and mine it. So I mentioned that everything's wonky in the wallet section. This is an example. It took 1 billion years for it to come up with just an error message. But basically, mining doesn't really work. Well, it kind of works. You can mine your own transactions, but you can't mine other people's, and other people can't mine yours yet. Still working on that. But let me go through all these warnings, paste it into there, send myself 200 coins, submit. It's going to go through and create the transaction, sign it and validate it, which takes it a while. There we go. It did that. Now it's not even done yet. So this is another wonky part, because when you get to this screen, you'd naturally want to just click mine a new block, right? But no, you got to wait even more for it to do that, where since you're mining it, you get the fee, and the fee is the difference between, we're sending 700, and we're sending 200 of it to ourselves. Then we're sending a 50 sat fee that's going to go to the miner, which is right there, and then the remaining 450 sats returns to ourselves as change. So yeah, now it's ready to mine. Let's mine it. And now it wants us to pay this. Okay. Gonna mine a block here. Mine. 846 cents. Select the motorcycle. You get proof that I'm not a robot. I think this one's got a little bit of the motorcycle in it too. And maybe didn't like that one. There's traffic lights. Okay, so gonna mine this last, transaction here, or mine this block, I mean. So yeah, as you might be able to tell, there are two transactions in here now, right? There's this one where the miner's he's spending those 50 sat fee to himself, and then there's the user who is sending 200 sats to himself plus 450 sats to himself as change. It's basically just splitting up his UTXO and giving 50 cents to a miner. But when you do this, we're actually batching two transactions together. And so even though these aren't real Bitcoins being sent, these are now just burnt Bitcoins that are never spendable on Bitcoin again. That's a thing. We're doing this. Like we're batching together transactions and doing them in a kind of more scalable. I mean, we have the whole second blockchain now in which we can do all these transactions. Let me just see this transaction right here. It's going to get mined pretty soon. There's the hash of our block, of our third block. If we view our space chain, here's our third block. There's its hash. It's got two transactions in it, going to and from our wallet. And yeah, even though it's incredibly slow and horrendous and has errors, the thing works. We've got a space chain here. We're doing a Bitcoin sidechain. No, I didn't have to ask anyone's permission to do it. I just wrote the code and did it. And even though it doesn't have real Bitcoins on it, it's only got these, space coins, which are burned Bitcoins. It's kind of cool. So I want to talk about a couple of controversies with space chains. And let me go to my Spacechain launcher GitHub to talk about this. GitHub.com, supertestnet, Spacechain launcher. This, of course, is a link that's going to be in the description. You can find it. This tells you all about the work I've done. And including it has a little frequently asked questions about burning Bitcoins. Like, I don't recommend doing this on mainnet, because who wants to burn real Bitcoins? I would like to get like a soft fork into Bitcoin, the drive chain soft fork, BIP300. That would let us have a federation. It would, instead of using a federation for holding Bitcoins on a side chain, it would let us use 51% of miners as the custodians of the Bitcoins on a side chain. And some people might like that. I mean, I wouldn't use that, but I think that would be cool to have, because then we could that would be you would have a greater, maybe, like, if you trusted 51% of miners not to steal your money, you could use them as kind of your custodian, which would be cool to hold your Bitcoins and then give them back when you're done using the side chain. You could also put federations on a space chain. I talk about that in number 4 down here. But why do we do this burning thing? Well, I kind of explain why we do it in this little paragraph here. The idea is that the space chain creator, like in me in this case, I burned a few sats, 700 sats, as the initial supply on this space chain right here. So I burned 700 sats to do that, and I guess there's apparently some sort of bug because 50 of them are missing. Where are those other 50 coins? They should be on here. I'll figure that out. The ones that I sent them to the miner, but of course I'm the miner, so they should still be in my wallet. So I spent an initial 700 sats to create the initial supply of coins. And the idea of space chains is that that's all you really need. Like, you just need whoever sets it up can create the initial supply, and then all they're meant for is for paying for transactions on this side chain. Maybe you've got a privacy side chain, maybe you've got a smart contract side chain, or whatever. This stuff is just meant to pay for gas to push those transactions through. And unlike with Ethereum, which originally claimed that it was just there for gas, but actually it's not, because it competes with Bitcoin in price. Burned Bitcoins can never compete with real Bitcoins in price. Because if they ever increased in value beyond 1 sat per space coin, and people started saying, I'm not going to give you these unless you pay me, $10 per space coin, I would just not do that. I would just burn my own Bitcoins. Like, if I wanted to use the sidechain, I would burn my own Bitcoins to make more of them. And so that kind of puts a ceiling on the price of them. They can never be more than 1 sat per space coin, because otherwise people will just make their own. Since you have the option of doing that at the price of 1 sat per space coin, you can just do that. and that puts a cap on the price of these things, which prevents them from being like Ethereum. Oh, this is really just for paying for transaction fees. Like, no, it competes with Bitcoin. Space coins can never do that because you can make more of them by destroying Bitcoins. So that's the idea there. I don't think that justifies it. Like this thing right there, like that only makes sense to do for me. It only makes sense if like I really want to use the space chain for some reason, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. I talk about that down in this. I don't personally think a space chain will ever come out that I would want to use, but it's cool though. I think this is cool technology. And maybe some people will like it, and maybe some people will use it and burn their Bitcoins to the ground and increase the value of my Bitcoins. So here it is now. We can do sidechains, and I think it's cool. You should check it out. Talk to you guys later. Oh, yeah, you can try it out. The links are in the description for if you want to make your own sidechain.